What's up, guys?
What's up, DC? Welcome back to Abu Dhabi. How you feeling now you're back? I know that travel's rough.
Well, I hurt my back playing golf the other day, so it's kind of sore, but it's alright.
I mean, it's better hurting it at golf than sneezing, I guess, right?
It's better than sneezing, and it's better than having to go train with it, so now I can just lay in the bed.
Listen, you're a man who's had a towel in front of you at a weigh-in before. Can we look into Hamzat or anything about that, or do you think 0.5 is nothing to really worry about?
You know, it could be a 0.5 pound with an hour to go. It doesn't really, it won't really mess with him tomorrow night at 12 o'clock at night.
Right.
You know, it's tomorrow and another half day to recover from the weight cut. So as much as it sucks right now, and they're going to have some conversations with Hamzat in the back, because that half a pound to him feels like forever. So his coaches are going to have to motivate him to go and get the weight cut started again. That's the hardest part. It's like you cool down when you come up here to check your weight, and you don't want to go back and just throw the sweats right back on. So they're going to have to get him motivated to do it, but ultimately, half pound should not be that difficult.
Is that something we maybe underestimate, right? Because a lot of fighters talk about the weight cut being the fight before the fight, yeah? Is having to get on the scale, go back and start it again, is that a whole nother level?
It's just the mental, you know, because again, when you're that close to weight, it's hard to break the sweat. So when you take the time, like if you're making weight and you're very close, you should walk up here with your sweats, pull them off right there, jump on the scale, and then try to get your sweats back on if you're still overweight. But most times they tell you to dry off, get the sweat off to make sure that you're as close as possible. So then you're tasked with going back there, dry now, and restarting that weight cut, restarting that sweat, which doesn't want to come whenever you're so severely dehydrated. That's where the issue lies. It's tough, but I do believe that if you want to do it, you can get it done when you're that close.
Talk to us about this card. Obviously, your boy Islam's on it. Would you agree with me that him versus Dan Hooker is the fight that's really shining out, even above the title fights?
I just think that Islam is a guy that has people interested, and Dan Hooker with his story and his willingness to come back here after just fighting very recently and looking as good as he did, it really has gained traction. So it's a big fight. People are excited about the fight, but ultimately it is about the guys that are fighting for the belt, right? It's always about the guys that are fighting for the belt.
When you look at that main event between a couple of older guys, you fought for a title, very last day of your career. When you look at those guys, what do you admire about their perseverance and their ability to get knocked down, get back up, and keep fighting? Especially Glover, who last fought for a title years ago.
You know, Glover's story is very, it's inspirational because you've seen him ride the wave. Like, when he got into the UFC, he was a scary guy that got stuck in Brazil, couldn't get over here, he couldn't fight. And then he started fighting. He was 8-1, 18 in a row, fought Jones, lost. Then he was on the cusp of fighting me twice, I believe, when I was the champion, and he would lose. And then he had to start to build. People are starting to call for him to go away from the fight game. And look at him now. He's dealt with adversity in just about every single performance that he's had. The last one he got dropped, it looked like it was over for him. It looked like in another #1 contender spot, he was going to fall a little bit short at 41 years old. But then he was able to pull himself up by the bootstraps to get it done. Jan Blachowicz. Someone made a mistake a while back and said, since coming up from middleweight, Jan Blachowicz has looked like an absolute killer. I thought Jan Blachowicz was a middleweight. We were in the same weight class. Didn't even know that we were fighting in the same weight. He was ranked, but he just kept plugging away. He would lose, he would just get back. He would keep going, and ultimately, he found that form that allowed for him to become the champion of the world. And not only is he the champion of the world, he looks like a guy that can reign atop his division for a long time.
Do you think something like Jan's great because 205 is always for years has been John Jones is kind of attached to it, kind of not. Do you feel like Jan's the first guy, not to disrespect stuff, who's really been able to push John away, probably because of a lot of John's own behaviour, let's be fair, but to push John away and be like, I'm the new champion, this is my division now, and really set himself apart?
They didn't fight, right? Because they didn't fight, they didn't come across each other. Jan doesn't have to deal with him as a hindrance as much as I did during my career. So I think when you look at Jan Blachowicz and you see how hard it was for him to get to where he is today, you just respect it.
Yeah.
You respect what he's done. You respect his skills. And then you respect, not only is he winning fights, he knocked out, God, I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Dominic Reyes.
Yeah, Dominic Reyes. He knocked out Dominic Reyes. And then he goes out there and fights Adesanya and proves that he can not only stand with him, but beat him in the stand-up, and then incorporate the game that everybody thought he should since round 1 and round 4 and 5 to take him down and beat him in the way that he did. So it's very it's encouraging for fighters that never wore the title, and you'll feel happy for Jan and his family to see them have that type of success.
Last thing for me, do you think there's something extra cool about those guys? You know, it's always nice to see someone like Anderson again in the UFC, immediately win a title, go on this crazy run. But do you think there's something cooler about seeing guys like Jan, Bisping, Oliveira, who got knocked down, and still just persevered and got through?
Yeah, it's hard. Man, I'm telling you, like, when you think about this, and some of the talented fighters that never wore a UFC championship, you understand how difficult it is to stand in the middle of that octagon and get a belt wrapped around your waist. And you watch these guys, and when you see them go through what they went through, when you look at Charles Oliveira, who had many, many times just really stumbled and almost melted in the face of adversity, deal with what he dealt with Michael Chandler, come back into the next round and win in the fashion that he did, it truly is like, this is never impossible if you really commit yourself to being the best in the world. And that's exactly what Jan showed. And Bisping, come on. Who wasn't happy for Bisping? Listen, he beat Luke Rockhold, who's my boy, right? So I was kind of mad. But then I look over at Mike and his family, and like, kind of got like a little bit of a, you know, fuck you right now, but I'll be happy for you later, you know? Yeah, I was happy for Mike.
Hi, JC. Here.
Yep.
If Glover wins tomorrow, he's going to become the second oldest fighter to become a champion in the UFC. I believe that position is yours today.
Yes, yes.
Seeing fighters like him, you know, still going for the belt at his age, you know, which kind of message do you think that sends? Especially because we're seeing lately, you know, Anderson Silva retiring at that age. And
Well, you know, people fighting into their 40s, it almost seems impossible. And I know what it felt like to fight into my 40s. So watching Glover manage this, manage time, which is undefeated, that's one thing you can't beat. No matter how talented you are, you don't beat time. And to watch him manage it, because he ain't gonna beat it, right? It's gonna ultimately catch up to him just like it does everybody else. But to manage it to the point that he is now on this win streak and fighting for the belt again, unbelievable. I cannot believe that he's put himself into this position. And it just shows that in fighting, I mean, look at Anderson now in boxing. What in the world is happening? Like, I mean, this guy, Anderson was getting knocked out in fight, but he goes into the boxing ring and he's beating Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. It shows you that if you're committed to your craft, age is not supposed to hold you back. Like Aaliyah said, age ain't nothing but a number. You know that? Okay.
he also said that that's just possible because, you know, at 39 years old, he found out that he used to train wrong and he used to do a lot of things wrong. He went to the UFC and kind of like figure out that if he changed his diet, the way he trains and sleeps, he could actually, you know, become a better fighter at that age. How much do you think science is helping those fighters to get their careers, like, you know, longer?
That's a ton. But sleep and recovery is so important. That's what Glover asked me yesterday in the fighter meetings. He goes, DC, when you were getting ready to fight at 39, 40, 41, he goes, was it harder to train or sleep? Because you just can't shut your body off. When you get that motor running at an advanced stage, it's hard to really shut it down and then go to bed. He said he's really focused on that recovery. And I think that's one thing that's helped these guys as they get older. And athletes are smarter now. They just know that you cannot be doing all the things in between. When you're older, you gotta go train, you gotta go home, you gotta rest, you gotta massage, recovery, everything else, go back to train, come home, eat, and rest. And I think it's not only the athlete, but the families that support them that allow for them to live like that they can fight longer and at a high level.
I'm just curious about which other fight in this card you were more excited about.
John Anik actually came up here and listed so many fights. I cannot believe he can remember that. It's insane that he can just call back to all these difficult names and say, I want to watch that one, that one, that one, and that one. I can't do that. So I'm just going to say, what did he say? He said Vina Janjova and yeah, man, he watched, yeah, that's the one I'm going. Yeah, I'll do that. It's a prelim, I guess. Right, isn't it the main event prelim or something like that? Yeah, he went all into that. So, like, knows his rundown.
What's up, DC?
Yep.
So I remember, if I'm not mistaken, in previous fans gave you a nickname, Black Fedor.
Yeah.
So what does it means to you, fans comparing you with a real Fedor?
You know, when I started fighting, you know, Fedor was everything. He was the man, right? He was a guy that didn't look like a bodybuilder. He was fast. He could knock people out, and I took it as a privilege, you know, but it meant a ton to me. And again, to see this dude doing what he's doing now, like, that's crazy. Fedor's 45 years old, knocking people out. Fedor should stop now. It's like fairy tale. It's like the fairy tale. To go into Moscow and get a knockout in the way that he did. Just walk away, man. Because otherwise the shit's going to end bad. You're going to be like everybody else. Like, you're going to end up on your back. And that'll be like the story that we have seen 1,000 times with great champions. Right now is the time for that storybook ending. I just don't know if these great champions can avoid that pull that tells them they can do it again and be who they were back in the day.
And I also remember that you said that Fedor is a mid-tier fighter, especially starting from 2010.
Yes.
With now him performing against Tim
but
Johnson.
listen, okay, so here's the problem, all right, and this is what people don't understand about me, right? This is probably why I became a champion. When I say average, in that statement I said he may be the champion, and he is going to be one of the top 5 guys. So when I say average, my average is different than everybody else's average. Everybody else's average may be a guy that wins and he loses. If you're just a top 5 guy to me, at times it's like, you spend your whole career, it's kind of like, okay, you did good, but you're not exceptional. Exceptional are the champions. Exceptional are the guys that we've been speaking about for the last 20 minutes. Charles Oliveira, who went from losing all the times to become the champ. We're talking about Michael Bisping, who was ranked in the top 5, who, if he would have stayed there, I would have said, okay, this guy's kind of okay, but nothing exceptional. That's me. Like, I think at a different level. Champions to me are exceptional. I'm not saying the guy wouldn't have been good. He would have, if he'd have fought 10 times, he might have been 8-2. But if he was 8-2, won the belt, lost the belt, and then was number 5 the whole time, that's pretty good. But what are you gonna do? It's just a different expectation for me. My mind doesn't work with just being okay.
If there is an option, him fighting at least one fight at this moment in the UFC, so would you like to see him fighting? At least one.
I mean, Andre Arlovski's still fighting and winning too, so maybe you can put those guys in there. But that's not what the UFC does. UFC doesn't really have, fun fights. Every fight has to be going in a direction. Andre's fighting now still because he's winning, and he's winning consistently, and he's beating young, good fighters. If he didn't, it would be time for him to go. If I hung around and I started losing the guys that couldn't beat me before, it would have been time for me to go. They would have let me go. Anderson Silva got cut from this place. You have to have a purpose in the UFC. It's not about fun fights here, man. You got to be working towards the championship.
If they fight again, I mean, Andrei Arlovski and Fedor.
I'm not picking those dudes fight, man, because Fedor people are crazy. You can't say nothing about this dude. I got attacked a lot, and I wasn't being mean.
The last one, in terms of putting Fedor in a GOAT list, which place you would give him?
Be right at the top. One of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I think he's the best heavyweight of all time. Some of the wins that he had back in Pride, when he won like 29 fights in a row, how could you ever question what that man did? So I think it's him and Stipe Miocic. They have separated themselves from the rest of the pack at heavyweight.
The last one, I promise. So, your favorite Russian fighter of all time?
My favorite, oh, really? Hey, anybody want to answer?
Habib.
Yes, thank you. Habib Nurmagomedov, man, it's crazy. I get accused of like being in love with Habib. Like, you can't ask me that and think that I'm going to say anybody else. That's Habib. Dude's the man. He's the greatest. I think he's the greatest fighter of all time. I think he could have did this thing until he was 50-0 if he wanted to. That's how good Khabib was.
If we speak about current fighters who are competing, not Khabib, who is retired?
Who's my favorite Russian fighter right now?
Yeah.
Islam Makhachev. Yeah, you know, you're trying to get me to say Fedor. It won't work. Like, it's Islam. Like, I like my teammates, man. Those guys are killers, bro. I'm telling you, like, you'll see tomorrow. Now, Islam is facing the toughest challenge of his life. Dan Hooker is an absolute savage. And I'm excited to see how and if he can manage this challenge.
Thanks.
No problem.
These are great. Going off of that, I don't know if you saw Dominic Cruz did an interview with your friend Ariel on the MMA Hour, and he said he questions fighters that retire undefeated. He says, did you really challenge yourself? And a lot of people assumed he was talking about Khabib. So what do you make of Dominic Cruz's comments about questioning fighters retiring?
You know, it's okay. So I got to be careful the way I answer this, because if this gets skewed in any way, Dominic Cruz is smart, and he's so smart that he'll get you thinking that you said something wrong when you didn't. But Dominic is he's different. He's very different, and he tries to challenge himself in ways that most people don't. So he thinks that the only way to have truly gone through the fire is to find your equal. Unfortunately, nobody was able to equal Khabib Nurmagomedov, and they weren't going to. So I don't agree with that statement, but I do understand what Dominic is saying. Because if Dominic would have been undefeated, he would have done something different. He would have said, I'm going to fight 135 or 145, sorry. He would have did something different. But Khabib fought at 155. He'd have had success at 170. But it was a matter of him getting out and making a promise to his mom, and it means more to him. Nothing means more to this guy than family. So if he told his mother something, losing his dad, it was time for him to walk away. And I support it.
Then one final one. There's another light heavyweight fight on this card. One of your former opponents, Volkan Ozdemir, you were just talking about like Glover and Jan having to build himself back up. He's fighting Ankalaev, who, not counting John Jones, is the longest active win streak at light heavyweight. So what do you make of that matchup?
I think Glover's in a unique position, right? Because he fought Yuri the last time he fought and got knocked out. Yuri is on fire right now. And now he finds himself fighting Ankalaev. If you don't win this fight, now you become that guy. You become that guy to springboard young fighters into championship contention. You don't want to be that. That is the one thing, that is the one place you don't want to find yourself. But if you can turn them back, you breathe new life into your career. And I think that is where Volkan Ozdemir is right now. Talked to him yesterday. He seems confident. Seems like he's ready to go. And he had success against Prochazka. But he's got to have sustained success in order to win against a guy in Ankalaev who, honestly, that's the guy that they should all be worried about. Because I think Ankalaev is fantastic.
Yeah, he said after he wins that light heavyweight, he's still not going to get matchups at light heavyweight. The top 5 at light heavyweight's not going to want to fight him.
Ankalaev?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they will, because he's good, man. He's good everywhere. He can wrestle, he can grapple, he's a fantastic striker. But they're going to have to fight him. I think we're seeing a lot of that with some of these fighters, these Dagestani fighters. They press and they press and they press, and then people fight them when they have to. You ain't got to fight these dudes, why would you? So you make them work until you can't avoid that altercation anymore. Guys, thank you so much. All right, guys, thank you.